welcome back to Getting to Know You. Thanks again for watching. I've been really enjoying my conversations with people this week. I'm excited to have Judge Derek Mosley as our guest. Derek is a municipal court judge for the city of Milwaukee. He's also very what are you, Derek? You're all over the place, is what you are.
Active?
Yes, yes, active. That's the word. Yes, you're very active in the community. We are in the middle of March, but everyone was so blessed to read. Many of us were able to read your Black History Month posts every day to educate and create awareness. And also, you have a strong reputation for being a Milwaukee foodie. So, hi, Derek. How are you?
I'm great, John. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
One of the reasons I asked you to do an interview now was my mother-in-law actually called me a couple days ago and she said, hey, your friend Derek's on the news, something about his COVID experience. And I thought, well, that was a long time ago. Why would he be on the news? And I thought, oh, it's been a year. You had COVID a year ago, didn't you?
Yeah, it's been, so I had my 1 year anniversary of the whole COVID experience. Actually, it takes place March 26th. Okay. So March 26th was the date in 2020 I actually got my results and walked myself into the emergency room and didn't walk out again for another 12 days.
Yeah, it was a scary time, and it was really early on in the pandemic, people's understanding of it. So I've said this too many times, but again, very, very blessed that and grateful that you're okay.
Well, thank you, my friend. Me too.
So the spirit of these interviews is just to get to know people a little more. We're recording this on your lunch break of we can kind of see your background of kind of what you do, but why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. So I am the chief judge of the City of Milwaukee Municipal Court. I have been in this position. Actually, I can't believe this, John. I'm going into this position in August. It'll be 19 years. That I've been on the bench. So I've kind of grown up on the bench, if you will. As you mentioned earlier, I'm pretty active in the Milwaukee community. I sit on 5 nonprofit boards in Milwaukee that are near and dear to my heart. So whether it's the YMCA, whether it's the Urban Ecology Center, whether it's Divine Savior Holy Angels Board, whether it's Trans Center for Youth or the United Way Committee, everything I do is focused in Milwaukee. A lot of it has to be focused around youth as well. I've always been that way. Youth are sort of like, I look at it, there's old Frederick Douglass quote, which, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so I think if we start with children and we nurture them and we teach them and we guide them and show them support, then they can flourish and be whatever they want to be. In fact, one of the things I've learned in 19 years on the bench is people are different. There's a big difference between people who are raised on love and people who are raised on survival. And so give more love, we can see the fruits of that labor, if you will. I'm a father. I have 2 children. Callan, who is a sophomore at Divine Savior Holy Angels, and Kieran, who's in 7th grade at St. Seb's. Callan also went to St. Seb's. And let's see, my wife, Kelly, is an administrative law judge for the state of Wisconsin. So although we do 2 very different things, and I couldn't even stand doing the things she does. I listen to her hearings, and I'm just like, oh, it's just not for me. But yeah, so I guess that's a pretty good overview of me. So
it's good. Can I go back to what you said about being raised on survival or raised on love? What do you see? There's some obvious implications there, but expand that a little bit. What do you mean when you say the struggle of being raised on survival? What are the consequences of that?
Yeah, sure. So you and I were raised on love. right? So we had parents who raised us. We knew they loved us and they raised us. They provided us with things that we needed to succeed today, you know, whether that's education, whether it's health. We were always provided with things and saw love in the house every single day. All right. So we take that for granted because we think everybody's raised that way. But the one thing I learned quickly on this job is that not everybody is raised that way. Some people are just raised on sheer survival. So they're very, their outside is very hard and very guarded because they've been hurt so many times, whether they've been hurt by a parent, whether they've been hurt by another family member. And so that outside shell is hard to crack through, and they do things and react to things very differently than we react. You know, when you react on survival, if someone poses a threat to you, you respond violently in many instances because that's the way you had to survive. Doing it any other way could be detrimental to you or detrimental to the ones that you love, which is very different from us, right? So when something happens to us, we break it down, we think about it, we talk about the situation, try to work it out, you know, through words. Whereas I come across young people who, when things don't go their way, they want to work it out with fists or with guns. And so being raised on survival is a tough way to come up, right? And so you're always fighting for the next thing, the next meal, the next place to sleep, the next place to get a job. And so it's very difficult to work that way when you're always thinking about minute by minute, what is going to happen to me in my life.
It's a great reminder too of thinking of a person's whole context, you know, like this idea of in a moment, your job is to judge a moment in time, but to take into account their whole story is probably a much harder thing to do, but also gives you a fuller picture of who a person is.
You're absolutely correct. And that's probably the hardest part about the job, because remember, all that time you're raised on survival, that's decades, right? On top of decades. And then I have to kind of come in there and try to solve that problem within a half hour, right? And so that makes it very difficult and challenging, but also worth its while, right?
Yeah. So is that, do you consider that a benefit of the work that you've chosen to do, that you get to work with people that are in their most vulnerable places, or why do you do what you do, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, I do what I do because I've been wonderfully blessed, John. We've talked about health-wise, you know, I had a kidney transplant. When my kidneys were bad, I had COVID and survived that as well. So health-wise, I've had struggles, but I've been wonderfully blessed when it comes to life, right? I've had two great parents. I had great education. I have great friends, great family. And so I want to make sure that no matter where you live, no matter where you came from, no matter what your zip code is, you should have those same outcomes. You know, where you live shouldn't determine your health outcome. Where you live shouldn't determine your educational outcome. Where you live shouldn't dictate your employment outcome. And so I want to do whatever I can with the resources. I say the power of the robe, to do what I can to have an effect on someone's life. So if I could use that power to help you find a job, if I could use that power to help you find housing, then I'm going to do that, because I think that's my point. I mean, let's keep it real, John. Seriously, I should have probably been checked out a while ago, right? I mean, I had, you know, end-stage renal disease. Both my kidneys have failed. You know, then I'm immunosuppressed. I catch COVID. I'm one day from being put on a respirator. And so I'm still here for a reason. And I'm assuming that reason is that there's still work for me to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's when you put it like that, gratitude is the word that comes to my mind. But yeah, it's also like Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility. When we're given these when we're given these great gifts, you know, and like the power that you named, we've got an opportunity to hopefully make change for the better. So let me ask you about.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your faith. It's not something that you and I have talked a ton about, but I know that I know it's important to you. How would you describe your faith?
Sure. So I had an interesting upbringing faith-wise. So My dad was born and raised Catholic. So he went to Catholic school from, first grade all the way through eighth grade, and then went to an all boys Catholic high school in Chicago, Mount Carmel. And so he's always had that strong Catholic faith. That was his upbringing. And so my mom was Baptist. And so my mom grew up with that upbringing where, the two churches are extremely different. And what I mean by extremely different, I mean, you walk in and immediately when you walk into a Baptist church, it's about to go down, right? The choirs singing, everybody's clapping and dancing. And so we would go to those church sessions with my mom because at the time she was Baptist. And then, then the next week we go over to where my dad went to church, his Catholic church. We walk in and it's very different, right? And it's not so much, there's still singing, but it's not the same kind of thing. People aren't dancing down the aisles and, catching the Holy Ghost falling out on the floor and stuff like that. But it's, but you have, we have our moments in the Catholic Church, right? So what was different from us is that my mom grew up originally in the South. And in the South, there were no Black Catholics. And so my dad grew up in Chicago. And in Chicago, there is a pretty strong Black Catholic congregation. And so the Catholics kind of took over Chicago in the sense that they always put up parishes, which neighborhoods needed the most, right? And so that's the contact you had, the positive influence you had to do with, so for me, it was nuns. Nuns were the influence. For my dad, it was all brothers. So that was the positive influence you had in your life. And then my mom converted from Baptist to the Catholic. And, when you convert, when you give up your religion and go to another religion, you become pretty hardcore in that new religion, right? And so that was my mom. And so she was the one that we were going to church with every Sunday. She was the one that made sure that we got together for Christmas Eve Mass and Easter. And so she became very instrumental in our education to make sure we went to Catholic school. So I went to Catholic kindergarten all the way through 12th grade high school. And so so that became that strong base for me. And it was important because it became the foundation for how I live my life now. There's something my mom said, and she's now deceased, but she said this to me, and I actually have it on my bench in front of me. So I look at it every day, and it says, to the world, we're just one person, but to one person, we could be the world. And so every time I see that, I look up and I see the defendants in front of me. I look down and I see my mom's quote, and it makes me remember why I'm here, why I wear this robe. So so it guides me every day, John, in the sense that I see people every single day at the worst moment of their lives, right? And so it's important for me to let them know that you are not judged by the worst day of your life for the rest of your life, despite the fact that our society tries to do that by, branding you an ex-con or branding you a felon or branding you someone who has a record. But you are not, that's not who you are, you are a whole person.
It reminds me of the Brian Stevenson quote, we are more than the worst thing that we have ever done, right? And
you better believe it.
I think you're also referencing the dignity of the human person, that we're more than our actions. Tell me, that was beautiful. Tell me your mom's quote one more time.
To the world, we're just one person, but to one person, we can be the world.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I work, one of the things I do at SEBS is work with the RCIA, and I can confirm your assessment that someone that converts often has this passion for the faith that kind of, us cradle Catholics maybe lack the enthusiasm just because we take it for granted, right? So
right.
That's interesting that your mom embraced the faith so much after coming from her Baptist roots.
Right, because you walk into a Baptist church, and and also, I mean, this is me being a child, completely selfish. So I think I gravitated more, and my sister and I gravitated more to the Catholic Church out of sheer selfishness, right? We were out of mass in like 50 minutes, right? In the Baptist church, you're there for literally hours. So you have your mass service for 4 hours, you leave, you go to the church basement to eat, and then you go back up for another 2 hours. I was like, come on, man, this is Sunday, the Bears are playing, you know. So it was, it became a lot.
Yeah, our experiences dictate. I mean, we got donuts, right? We got donuts, so.
Right.
I know that you've been. I know you've been really instrumental in the SEBS community, just based on what you do in the city. But you've also been pretty engaged, especially in the school community. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been involved? I know that Heather has really relied on you at times to kind of bring your own expertise and your training and awareness. So just talk about that a little bit.
Sure. John, that's actually the part of this whole pandemic that has actually been the hardest, because I'm not able to engage like I used to be able to engage, right? I would just pop in on Heather, you know, at school and just say, hey, just checking in to see how things are doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not able to do that due to, you know, the pandemic and what's going on and my vulnerability. But yeah, I've been engaged in a different way now. So I'm kind of behind the scenes. So situation like the playground that's being built and the new resources, I've had an opportunity to connect people at SEBS with people who are looking to donate money to help us build the playground. And so I've had this sort of like behind the scenes role now because of the pandemic. But yeah, prior to that, I would want it to be seen as much as possible. This is the beautiful part about St. Seb's, the parish school, is that it is extremely diverse. And it's not just ethnic diversity. There's a whole different type of, there's members of our school community who are Muslim. We have members of our school community that are Black, white, Latino, Asian. It's just such a diverse environment. And, you know, to be honest, as a SEBS parent, you get kind of spoiled because when you move from SEBS to the next level is not like that. The next level isn't as ethnically diverse. It's becoming more diverse, and I shouldn't say it isn't diverse. Let's just say this: it isn't as ethnically inclusive. How about that? I think that SEBS is very inclusive, and I love that part about it. That's why we're part of the community, and that's why I like to help to do whatever I can to bring all of us together. You could be, you know, for instance, the mayor of Milwaukee, right? And you could be the mayor of Milwaukee, or you could just, you know, be the dog catcher, right? And so we're all in the same boat. We're all part of this SEBS community, and no one's better than anybody else. And we learn from each other, and we grow from each other. And that's why I do what I can to do what I can for the school and for the church, so that we can continue to do that for another 100 years.
That's another reason that I have wanted to do these interviews, because it's so clear to me how amazing so many people of this community are, and it's giving a little bit of a platform to say, hey, did you know this person did this and this person did that? I'd be remiss if I didn't just touch on your Black History Month posts, because they were especially good. They're always good, but I found myself going, wow, a lot of times this year. And I know that both the parish and the school have shared your posts on their social media. Can you just talk about that, a little bit of that passion project of yours?
Sure. You know, for me, it all started back when the best way to explain it is that so my mom worked for Encyclopedia Britannica, and I know a lot of kids, my kids have no idea what that is, right? And so I try to describe it as it was basically Google in book form, right? I mean, we used this to find all the information we needed to find what we needed. And the one thing that I noticed in this Encyclopedia Britannica is that people that looked like me were missing. And so it just seemed like that piece of history was missing. So my mom kind of started me on this journey. And then I decided to seek more and more and more. And what just started off as a little hobby is just, you know, hey, I just want to find out as much as I can about Black history, became like this movement. And I see now more people are doing it as well. And we're sharing each other's posts, and I'm picking up stuff from other people. And it's a story that we have a problem telling. It's not just Black history, and I don't use the term Black history anymore. And I don't use the term Black history anymore, is because when you say Black history, then it tunes out a lot of people who aren't Black. They think, oh, this isn't my history, this is Black history. So now I refer to it as Blacks in history, because that way it's encompassing of everybody. So this is our history. It's U.S. history that wasn't told. And it's sad that it wasn't told. And we don't tell Native American history. We don't tell Asian American history. We don't tell Mexican American, Latino history. And it's important that we do that. And that's one way that we can truly be, like Seb's, a more inclusive society.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that, and thanks for that gift that's been to the whole city. Really,
I appreciate it.
Your mom seems like she was an incredible lady, and the cause for many of your wonderful initiatives.
Indeed, and she wasn't very big. You know, she was a little woman, and I've always been bigger than her. But she always put the fear of God in me, so I didn't mess with her at all. But yeah. She was, you know, so my dad worked all the time, and you know, for him to afford to send us to Catholic school, because, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of scholarships and there's no such thing as the choice program back then. And so he had to work a number of jobs, work a lot of hours, I should say, the job to make enough money to afford it. So my mom was the one we saw every day, and she was the one who held down the fort, if you will. And so they both had a huge impact on me, but my mom is the one that I turn to the most when I'm looking for, searching for answers.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. My last question for you is, when you think about the future, what do you hope for?
You know, so what I hope for, John, is what we've been talking about this whole time. And that's, we are one of the most diverse nations on the planet, right? Yet we aren't very inclusive. We're diverse, but we don't do a whole lot together. A study came out just recently that said 75% of whites in America have a social network that is completely missing people of color. So on a course of one day, they will have no contact with someone of color. And then if you look at their social media feed, there's nobody of color of their friends. Or if you attend one of their weddings, there's nobody of color watching the wedding or in the wedding. And so, and that number is 40% for people of color. And so I think what we have to do is, that is like the issue that we're grappling with. So whenever we deal with anything, we don't understand each other. We don't relate to each other. And if we were more inclusive and opened up our circles of influence, our circles of trust, then we would realize that we have more in common than that separates us, and that we all want the same things. We want our families to survive. We want to educate our kids. We want good jobs. We want safety and live in safe neighborhoods. We all want the same thing. And so if we can just become more inclusive to achieve that goal, then we could do that. You know, what's the quote? A rising tide lifts all boats. So let's do that. You know, so let's try to do that so that everybody benefits. Like I said before, you know, where you live shouldn't determine your outcomes. Health, education, employment, that shouldn't matter. We should all care about each other and hope that we all succeed.
I'm thinking about what you're saying, and it's like, it sounds so good. Why isn't it easier to do? Why do we have such high statistics of separation? In your estimate, is it fear-based?
You know, I think a lot of it is fear-based. So I do this all the time when I talk about this stuff. So I tell everybody, I want you to sit down. I want you to think of your 5 most trusted people in your life that aren't family. So think about those 5 most trusted people and write them down. So everybody writes them down. And then I go through a series of questions and I say, I want you to check that person who looks like you, same race as you. Check the people who look like you. Check the people the same gender as you. Check the people with the same religion as you. Check the people who have a disability, if you have a disability, or no disability, if English is a second language as you. And when you look at your list of your trusted 5, they all look like you. And so your circles are very small. Our circles are very small. And so I think that's just, I think that's human nature, that you are attracted to the people that look most like you. But we learn so little about each other when we do that. And so there's so many things that are going on in this community that are trying to help that. And I'm trying to do that as well. And as you mentioned, I'm kind of a foodie, so I like to eat food. And I found the one thing that brings people together is food. So diverse dialogues. So once we're able to get back together, I want to host dinners at my house with a group of people who don't know each other. They have nothing in common, and sit down and eat over a meal, break bread, and talk about ourselves and our lives so that our circles become bigger and bigger. We're staying in these little small circles, which aren't allowing us to have these large conversations.
Yeah. I want one of the first invites to one of those.
You got it.
Okay, good. Hey, I know that you are incredibly busy, so thank you for your time. But I just want to say I appreciate you being so open and sharing your story. But second, thank you for continuing to challenge us and to be better and to take on that spirit of inclusivity so that we can just be better as a community and as people.
Yeah, I appreciate it, John. Remember, you and we got skin in this game, right? We have children who are coming up, and I want to leave them a world that is more inclusive, where they are truly judged by the content of their character, right? And so, yeah, we're on this fight together. It's not a lone battle. We're all in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's keep fighting. Thank you, Derek, so much.
Yeah, many hands make the load light.
That's right. We'll do it together. Judge Derek Mosley, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
John, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Blessings on your journey, sir.